So good morning, friends, and a very warm welcome to all the participants. Thank you for joining in today. And so the COVID-19 situation, what I have been observing is that is behaving exactly like our markets, right? So it is extremely unpredictable. And with the fear of the damage done by the second wave, the government also doesn't seem to be willing to take any chances that there could be a third wave and how it would proceed, and it is proceeding with extreme caution. Our healthcare infrastructure and the pharma industry has been tested to the hill during this pandemic, and I think specifically during the second wave. Hopefully, there'll be a lot of learnings going forward, and as we gear up, hopefully we will not be having a third wave. As regards our markets are concerned, they seem to be scaling new highs, and we have seen good corporate numbers coming in to support the same. The Nifty is just shy of an all-time high of 15,915. The healthcare sector had a muted performance till March, and after that, we have seen with the onset of the pandemic, so it had a dream run. However, it did take a breather between October 20 to March 21. So 6 months was a little bit subdued. And thereafter, again from April 20 and onwards, we have again seen the pharma sector outperforming the Nifty 500. In September 20, we had come out with a detailed booklet on the pharma sector. If anyone wants it, they can write to us and we will again share. And I'm just sharing some trivia information of the booklet. We have tried to update some of the data. So some data is updated up till 31st May because the portfolios are available till that period, and some is up to 30th June. So the entire market capitalization of the pharma healthcare industry is around 14 lakh crore. And the size of the pharma funds, I mean, I'm talking of only the sectoral fund, is around 14,000 crores. So translating into around 1% of the entire sector holding. I mean, so this excludes the pharma holdings in other categories. So, you know, other fund also could be holding pharma stocks. So there totally we have around 51 pharma and healthcare companies which form part of the top 500. And out of these, you know, around 12 are in the top 100. We have 13 in the mid cap and around 19 in the small cap space. One surprising thing which we have seen is that there are around 7 companies which do not form part of any of the pharma funds portfolio. I mean, so it was, and notable name among that was Wockhardt. Okay. And the most maximum owned stock by nearly, which is held by nearly all the pharma funds is, you know, Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, Cipla, Divi's, and Alkem. Okay. Nippon Pharma Fund is the one with the largest AUM. So it is the one which has the highest amount of AUM with them, and it has the highest exposure to even the large cap funds. DSP has to mid cap and UTI has to small cap. So that is just the breakup in terms of how it is being held. So we have the pleasure of having with us today a veteran of the stock market. So someone who's been also specifically also tracked the healthcare as a sector for more than now nearly 15 plus years, nearly 17 years. So please join me in welcoming Shailesh Bhan, Deputy CIO at Nippon Mutual Fund. So thank you, Shailesh, for taking time out today on a Saturday and trying to give us a perspective on the healthcare sector. So just a brief introduction. With over 25 years of experience in the Indian equity market and with more than 15 plus years in Nippon. So he manages Nippon India Multi-Cap Fund, which was previously called Nippon India Equity Opportunities Fund, which has assets of over 10,000 crores since its inception in March 2005. He also handles the Nippon Large Cap Fund with assets of over 13,000 crores. And even the largest pharma fund is being managed by Shailesh since May 2004. And the best part is that when it started, it had obviously an NAV of 10. Today, the current NAV is around 304. So if somebody would have invested 1 lakh of rupees in 2004, in 17 years, he would be having 30 lakhs of amount with him. So that's a wealth creation at nearly 22% CAGR. So I think it's been a phenomenal run, and Shailesh can take complete credit for being from the start till now. So I mean, it's a complete continuity. So thank you once again, Shailesh. So we will have, as per our usual format, we'll have Shailesh talk for around 25-30 minutes, and then we can take a Q&A session. So over to you, Shailesh.
Thank you very much, and very good morning to you all, and thank you for joining in and sparing time on a Saturday. And I'll be very happy to take you through the key aspects of the sector. I'll try to present it more from the point of view of how, as a fund manager, we look at this sector rather than as as a technical investor, in the sense the person who spends a lot of time understanding the technicalities there. But I think the real journey of this sector has been from a point of view of how it's been from nowhere virtually emerged as possibly the single most competitive sector of India, which is globally competitive. When you look at most other sectors, India is nowhere in the picture, except say IT services, and that too it is more in some context an arbitrage play for a long period of time. But this is one sector which provides its products to more than 120 countries in the world. So it's like that diverse, that global, that established, and it's only really got its appreciation in the last 1.5 years. Unfortunately, because COVID came about and created and brought it into limelight. So COVID is just one factor why this sector is good, but there is 80-90% of what's good in this sector has been before, or what has been built by companies and entrepreneurs in India very significantly over the last several years, which I think is more important. Now, let me just present this sector from that angle and try to look at the opportunity from that perspective. So let's take this sector, unlike most other sectors, has several subsegments. So I'll just talk through you to each of these 3 or 4 or 5 important subsegments, and then discuss each of them in detail. So let's start off with the single most important subsegment, which is the domestic pharma space. All of us know this. I think everybody in some context or the other is a consumer. And unfortunately, India continues to have one of the largest chronic populations in the world, or chronic disease exposed populations in the world. And now it's like, a developed country diseases. We have everything which all, say, developed countries have, and we have developing country incomes. So the solutions needed for this, I think, are so well provided by Indian companies that I think the pricing and the costing to consumers is very, very reasonable, and still a large underpenetrated, in some sense, a market is there, or a large segment of the people are still not either diagnosed or not onto medicines to control and improve their lifestyle. So it's a large underpenetrated market, still very young. It has nearly compounded early double digits, maybe 11 to 12% compounding in terms of volumes for the last 15 to 20 years. No other sector in the country would claim to have compounded at that rate in the last 20 years. And I think still it remains massively underpenetrated and can compound for at the same level, maybe for another 10, 15, 20 years, because that's the kind of scale of opportunity here we are talking about. So please don't see this as a sector which comes into fashion when other sectors don't do well. I think this itself is a sector of choice from a point of view of the opportunity it presents to all of us. The second important aspect of this sector is that, in the hype that India is considered as the youngest, a nation of very young people, one of the youngest demographic profiles. But you would realize that we would be, if classified as a country, the people over 50 in India would by themselves be the 4th largest nation in the world. So for example, US would be there, China would be there, US would be there, India as a total population, and the 4th country would be the 50 plus population of India if it is separately identified. So it is this big a market. And while we only talk about that 50% of India's population is below 28 years of age, the reality is a meaningful part of population, that is 27 crore people, or a little higher than that, are actually over 50. And all of you know, 50 plus is the age where a large amount of pharmaceutical consumption happens. There are studies which say about 5 to 10 times per capita consumption happens at 50 plus years of age. And with rising, I would say, life expectancy and all that, I think this market or this space is increasing substantially, and the requirement of services and solutions and products for this space only just keeps expanding. So this possibly is, I would say, more consumer as a sector than the typical traditional pharma, or you would talk about pharma, which is more driven by high degree of innovation, but a significant amount of consumer characteristics come into play. So you should see the sector as a set of companies and brands servicing 27 crore people, which are over the age of 50 years. And each year, you're finding about 1 crore people getting added to this bracket, and more being kind of diagnosed and put onto chronic medicines, which just people continue to take for 10, 15, 20 years. So every characteristic as an outsider, if you look at this business in this simple form, you'll realize that this is a sector which is far more sustainable than it appears outside. TV channels and newspapers and all talk about an FDA problem and all that kind of stuff, which creates volatility and issues. But I think fundamentally, a large part of profits, nearly 50% of India's profits now of this sector come from this domestic market, which is simply growing, which is growing by volumes in terms of number of people entering 50 plus age by about 3 to 4%, life expectancy rising, and hence I would want to say that this is a sector servicing the population, the people with 50 plus age group, and the comparable sizes. We know Germany is considered a country with old people, and the comparable sizes are Germany has only 3.7 crore people over the age of 50. So as we are growing, I think we can have early double digits or 8-10% kind of volume growth in sector for a long time to come, which means that this sector will become one of the largest sectors in India and possibly reckoned to be an important sector globally, given the size of population and the rising incidence and treatment levels which are there. So this is one piece. Second most important thing in this sector is good number of companies have built brands over the last 10, 15, 20 years. They will stay as leaders. It is very difficult to displace or dispose of these brands. So this sector, in my opinion, is far more attractive from the longevity point of view than from a point of view than most of the other sectors in India. And that makes it this sector's return on equity, growth, everything is far more sustainable. The second important aspect is that in this sector, you need promotion using medical reps and that kind of infrastructure. You cannot really do direct advertising and all that. So generally, most companies here enjoy closer to 25 to 35% margins. So here the margins are very comfortable. They're maybe even better than a lot of consumer companies. And in this, the amount of risk companies are taking to grow is also very limited. So this is one very important aspect of the sector. The second important category, which all of you realize, or it came to everybody's top of the mind, and it was mentioned that India is the pharmacy to the world, is India's manufacturing capabilities. Today, we are finding India being promoted as a manufacturing destination, make in India and all that. I think if there is one sector which has been extraordinarily successful in manufacturing, way before manufacturing has become a fad in India today, is actually pharmaceutical sector. In fact, we have been supplying nearly 40% of all generic medicines sold to the US in the form of orals and other capsules are actually manufactured in India, which I think no other sector or segment can claim to have so much of manufacturing prowess, which is there. Like I mentioned, we also supply to nearly over 120 countries in the world. We also sell our brand names in more than 15 to 20 countries. In the sense, our products are sold in the brand names owned by Indian companies in over 15 to 20 countries. So you will not find this in any other sector in India. So that capability or manufacturing infrastructure built as per US FDA or international FDA standards, with supply chains built to supply to a large number of countries in different packaging, different insertions needed, different marketing and delivery infrastructure needed. I think is what the sector has already achieved. So what most sectors today want to achieve, this sector is already there at the cusp of it, and the cost at which we supply is the lowest in the world. One point, or there is one always this question that India had so many FDA related issues, will we be pushed back because of this and things like that? You would realize that most countries in the world have had these challenges. In fact, US plants had so many challenges of FDA inspections and their failures. I think this is very normal. FDA expects extraordinary standards to be met, and you will find regularly these kind of events happening. But I don't think there is any country in the world which can provide so much of scale and volume of medicines to be sold globally. And if there is one sector where India is already extremely competent and scalable, I think it's already the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. Vaccines actually brought this attention to all of us, which is there. Which said that we manufacture such large scale of volumes of vaccines that the world had stood up to take notice. I think it had already taken notice in terms of the pharmaceutical manufacturing, which this country already carries. Now, is there still an opportunity? I'll present it this way. In the US, for example, when we are selling primarily only in the generic markets. So generic market is roughly $100 billion in US. And there is one more market, the specialty or branded market, which is 6 times bigger, $600 billion. That market, Indian pharma companies are just starting to address, and one or two have managed to make presence there. So I think there'll be some leaders, 3 or 5 companies in India who will be able to go there, transition there, become participate in those markets, and over the next 10 years have opportunities to make products where a single product itself or a category of products in a particular therapy itself can be giving them sales of 5,000 crores, 7,000 crores, single products, which I think is a high possibility in the next 5 to 10 years in some cases. Now, that whole market is just opened up because Indian companies have just become big enough to be able to invest in R&D and do it. Unlike most other sectors, this sector invests a very, very significant part of money into research and development, which is more new product development, if I may call. And close to 2,000 crore every year by the top 5 or 7 companies is invested in R&D in this particular sector. And all the profits which they report is after this 2,000 crore rupees being expensed out or spent. And most of this kind of scale, which today is available for these guys to focus this money into newer products and new therapies, will fuel a lot of growth and expansion in business. So I think the critical size of this sector has also been achieved in the last 5 to 10 years, which I think presents a meaningful opportunity for the pharma sector to take advantage of the profits which they are generating, reinvest for growth, and make money out of it. The other areas where I mentioned that we have brands in nearly 20 countries in the world, and we sell to about 120 other countries. A lot of these are emerging markets, and we are the best suppliers, we are the largest suppliers, and we have meaningful shares in many markets. We go for important markets like Brazil, to several other markets in Eastern Europe side and several other Asian markets. I think East European markets and Asian markets where Indian companies are doing very, very well. I think a lot of these markets are generally similar to Indian markets and can continue to have growth for the next 10, 15 years. And India, as a manufacturer and producer of these medicines, is one of the cheapest and the most competitive. So it's very difficult to replace the kind of scale we have built in these areas. So this is also a sustainable double-digit growth opportunity for a lot of Indian companies and businesses. Africa, which is opened up, as you know, it's a huge country. Over the last 10, 15 years, Indian companies have now built brands and are getting market shares there. That again is where India was maybe 25 years back, and it's just expanding. I think a similar opportunity of emerging markets presents in the context of such a large emerging I would say a continent which is available for Indian companies to participate and take advantage of. Keeping this aside, in the manufacturing side as well, we have become suppliers of choice for high quality products, like the factory to the world in terms of high quality FDA approved ingredients, or as we call in pharma, the bulk drugs and active pharmaceutical ingredients for manufacturing of formulations for across the world. So that API manufacturing space also, which we had problems in the last several years, I think is now expanding. Capabilities are there. It is now accelerating with the world looking at us and saying we want something away from China as a second backup, as an important source. And I think India is ready to take that space as well. And I think you will find many opportunities coming up there. Lastly, and importantly, on the pharma side of it, is the contract research and manufacturing space. Now, this is where most multinational companies, all global leaders, have shut down their manufacturing capacities and look for India to supply the product. And also they have looked for doing also outsourcing early stage work. Basically when you launch a new product, the basic chemicals which are needed have to be manufactured at a smaller scale and then expanded in terms of scale of manufacturing. For the whole chain of manufacturing, they are now partnering with Indian companies. And you are finding a lot of Indian companies being very, very competitive there. So this is one more segment which is growing. And here, because India is a very good IPR protector, I think nearly 15 out of the top 20 pharma companies in the world now get their work done in basic early stage R&D and manufacturing side and services side outsourced to a few Indian companies, which I think is a journey which began 10, 15 years back and now continues to keep getting stronger. So these are all the opportunities which are available in the pharma space, each of them growing early double digit, and many are so underpenetrated that they can grow like this for a 10, 15, 20-year period as well. That's the kind of possibility and opportunity which exists. Other areas which are important, which are the more domestic healthcare services, as I call them, the diagnostics, the hospital spaces, are also coming onto the own. I mean, I think we are finding after so many years of investment, hospital companies reporting extremely improved profitability because they have managed to get the scale which they were looking forward to. And I think as income levels has been rising in India, I think this whole journey of need for better healthcare is actually getting more and more visible. COVID has also brought this to limelight. And this has become, I think, in my opinion, the single biggest important problem this country has to address. Healthcare hospital infrastructure during the first wave and the second wave was clearly overburdened. Clearly, we were not ready to handle this kind of a problem. And I think it has got nothing to do with 3 months or 6 months of underinvestment, but हम 10-10, 15-15, 20-20 साल से इसमें invest नहीं कर रहे थे. So it's been that kind of a under investment we have seen. And I think वो opportunity, the government putting in money, Indian entrepreneurs putting in money, I think this is at very, very early stages of investment and growth in India. And people will be willing to spend and fund the healthcare infrastructure which is there. And both government and private sector is willing to participate. One more big development has also been the public-private partnerships which are there, which the government has initiated in terms of large labs being set up, modern cutting-edge labs being now set up in districts across the country. We were interacting with a lot of entrepreneurs in this area, and the feedback has been that a lot of this public-private partnerships have been able to bring about leading technologies, the ability to do scan, radiology, and all these technologies to a large scale of population, which earlier was not able to access it in government hospitals. This is now being sourced to the private sector as departments or subsets in government hospitals. And I think this is leading to a significant change in terms of medical infrastructure and diagnosis being available. Now, coming to diagnostics itself, I think India, you can get a diagnostics test done in India at $10, $700-800 rupees. You virtually get more parameters tested than you would want to be. And I think there is this kind of a thing has actually brought about a revolution in terms of people looking at their healthcare, getting themselves chronic problems identified early. Like I mentioned, 50 plus, a lot of people come to healthcare requirements 50 plus. That's more because diagnostics starts off late. But in the last 7 to 10 years, you're finding people wanting and getting into annual health checkups and all that from the age of 35 onwards, and are getting into very good treatment programs very early so that their quality of life and longevity of life actually improves. So अगर आप देखेंगे, everything in this sector is coming together or has come together over the last 10-15 years. And in this context itself, this sector can really benefit from each of these feeding into the other. So diagnostics leads into better detection. Better detection leads to patients coming on treatment early in the cycle, patients staying on treatment to maintain chronic diseases, and we having the best manufacturing infrastructure to be able to handle all that. So I think if you just summarize this sector, many things are there, and still this sector is, at least in my reading, underpenetrated by about 50% more than the FMCG sector, as you all know. So I think that whole underpenetrated sector, good economics, good return on equity, profitable companies, and growth is available. In the last 3 or 4 years, there are many new things which are also happening, which are not in the listed radar, but which has been coming to limelight because of one large acquisition which has happened recently. All of you have been using services of online pharmacies and the supply chain digitization which is happening in this area. I think this is one space which is just starting to grow. I think possibly it's doubling every year because it is still very early in terms of, or very small in terms of size. But I think slowly we are moving to a phase where you may have your doctor on an app, you already have diagnostics on an app, you will have pharmacy on an app, and I think you can have complete and total health management on the app maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. Not just sales, but 5 to 10 years, you will possibly end up having even a lot of remote support, even artificial intelligence, machine learning being used on your healthcare data, and solutions being there to allow you for being diagnosed early, treat early, and manage your condition very early. So I think a lot of exciting things are happening. We are still, this is just, as a lot of people say, this is just day zero or day one for the sector from that kind of view. And holistically, if you look at it, if there is one sector, like I said, where India is competitive and well placed, I think this is one. And no other sector, maybe other than IT services, comes into play. So this is the most competitive, most globally present, and a sector with a longevity, which is with a high degree of visibility. You can today sit and say that the sector will become or will grow at an X rate for a long period of time to come. So with this summary on the sector, I will specifically go for any specific questions or any specific areas you would want me to talk about.
Thank you, Shailesh. Very insightful. So before we start the Q&A, I mean, we also take up a poll from people. So we just have some poll questions. I will just do the first poll. That as you were even mentioning that for pharma, India is actually the hub, right? So we just have a question to just test the knowledge. What percentage of global vaccine requirement is supplied by India? So I've just request participants to give their choices. So there are 3 choices. Is it 20%, 40%, or 60%? So what is the global vaccine which is being supplied by India to the world? So Indians are less vaccinated, but how much are they supplying to the world is what is. We'll give another 15 seconds more for people to reply. Yeah, okay. So I've just I'm sharing the results. So 52% of the people think that it is 40%, 21% is 20%, and 28% is 60%. So it's actually 60%. So 60% of the global vaccine is supplied by India globally. So Shailesh, I have one question for you. Is that how do you see the domestic market change in the in the post-pandemic world now. That we are seeing that now there's a lot of awareness and everything is there. Are you seeing any shift? Will there be a tectonic shift?
See, the nature of the sector is such that generally you will not see substantial shifts very quickly. But I think there is greater awareness which is visible. So wherever you speak, there are only few things people talk about now. Whether I'm insured, what is my health insurance today? People talk about the fact that whether I am compromised, my immunity is compromised, that I may get impacted by COVID or something else. So there is a lot of awareness and interest which is there. And I think this will lead to, in my opinion, we'll see this will benefiting or see greater diagnostics available, people taking care of their health. In India, unfortunately, the issue has been people look at chronic diseases as if they are acute. In the sense, जो आपको ट्रीटमेंट चाहिए फॉर डायबिटीज एंड फॉर कार्डियक एंड ऑल दैट, लोग कंटिन्यूअसली नहीं लेते हैं. दे डोंट टेक इट फॉर अ लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. In the sense, they let go in the middle, and the consistency of treatment is not there. So one is getting also diagnostic and treated, and then complying on the treatment for a long period of time. I think that compliance factor will also move up substantially. So will this, in a manner of speaking, up the growth rate by a few points for a long period of time? I think so. And more importantly, I think it is now, healthcare is now becoming a pull factor post-COVID. It's unfortunate you needed COVID for that to happen, but becoming a pull thing where people themselves want to be tested, people themselves want to be treated, people themselves want to benefit out of this. Otherwise, pharmaceutical treatment costs are the lowest in the world in India. I don't think you will get medicines cheaper than this anywhere in the world. Imagine we are supplying to 120 countries, so you cannot get it cheaper. So it's not the cost. It is just the hesitancy to get into early diagnosis and treatment. And I think that is shifting. That is shifting in the last even 5-10 years. And I think COVID will only accelerate it.
So one question which I have with which is related with your fund is that we call it Nippon Pharma Fund, whereas now many others are calling it as a healthcare. Okay, so I healthcare being more broader in terms of that now we for the first time we have got health insurance companies listed, the diagnostic space also which is listed. So would your portfolio also now, reflect that it allows you to, or would you be concentrating mainly on, API driven companies or, pure pharma plays?
Yeah. So you just see the context, the whole healthcare sector, 80-90% of the size today is derived from pharmaceutical companies because they have a very large export market to address and a lot of the large domestic market to address. Nearly the remaining 10-20% comes under hospitals and diagnostic services. And health insurance, pure play health insurance companies are still not listed. So when you have listed health insurance companies, general insurance companies, you're just getting about 20% of value being derived from health insurance. Most of the value is still coming from auto insurance and passenger car insurance and things like that. But broadly, this fund is, in the sense, it covers the broader healthcare requirements itself. We have been invested in diagnostics for the last several years, hospitals for the last several years, maybe 10-15 years, since inception. And I think this fund will continue to toggle across each of these areas. Thankfully, this sector has many subsegments by itself. Unlike a cement or a steel, which is a monolith sector, which does well at one point of time, here you will have different segments supporting us. In the last 4 years, prior to the last 1 year, when you had, say, US pharma not doing well, or Indian companies supplying to US not doing well, domestic pharma supported the fund and the strategy at that point of time. So luckily, there are many subsegments like this. Hospitals is one, diagnostics is another. And I think it has always been an interplay. So we would maybe today be about 10-15% into services and 85% into pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Amarnath, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, morning, Shailesh. Just like to understand, you mentioned about the US market and the new R&D focus and company spending on R&D. The COVID care which is played out domestic. Hopefully, will as the unlock progresses, the domestic prescription market will rebound. Just wanted to get your insights on two other aspects. One is this theme of China plus one API substitution and PLI, which the government has pushed in a big way. How do you see that playing out, and which kind of companies might capitalize on that? And second is the other thing that, one thing which COVID exposed was India's, a gaping hole in our, if you would say that, in the devices and equipment side of the, healthcare setup, which again is, many companies are saying that they might want to step into it at this point of time, given the government support. So just your thoughts on these two aspects of.
Let me take the China plus one strategy, or, I think this is more got to do with self-sufficiency or that Atmanirbhar thought which is there. Even if you remember last time, the first wave when COVID came sometime in March in India, from January, February onwards, there were issues of shortage of supplies, or, talks that China would shut down its ports and infrastructure because, you would have challenges in terms of, because COVID had started off there. And there was a lot of, they were trying to contain it, and, supplies were not happening for 15, 20 days. There was big issue. A large part of basic chemicals to the world are still supplied by China. And India also benefits from that supply chain which is there. In fact, the current emphasis on bulk drug manufacturing in India or API manufacturing in India, India had all the capabilities even 20 years back. In fact, India was a large manufacturer. All Indian companies, whether it is all the large top 5 Indian companies were actually large bulk drug or API manufacturers. And so many out of Hyderabad were actually pure global leaders in supplying bulk drugs to a lot of specific categories. All of them had to shut down because China came up with huge capacities and was supplying products at a very low cost. And India became a big sourcer of those products and, continued to grow rapidly. In fact, it helped India put all the resources on formulations and R&D and attack the US market and gain such a large market share. In fact, if one sector, India is more competitive than China, is actually India's pharmaceutical export sector, where, India has beaten China by a large margin. Now, to secure the back end and to get antibiotics manufactured in India and in a lot of these areas, a lot of certain cardiac drugs, a lot of their inputs come from China still. I think you are finding the policy with the government has come about to be very, very important and interesting because, you need a certain scale capacities to be set up to benefit from pricing. No company or no buyer will give you will buy your products at a much higher premium than what the market rate is. It might give you a little bit of premium to de-risk it. But I think you need some support from the government to build that kind of infrastructure, and especially till volumes pick up and you become large. So I think these PLI programs are very important to allow for backward integration. We are seeing companies who have managed backward integration well have actually improved their margins because Chinese costs have also started to shoot up in the last 5 to 10 years. And I think now companies will want a second source. So international companies buying from China would want a second source. Indian companies themselves who are large buyers from China want a second source. And the government supporting setting up of large API infrastructure in India will allow for meaningful localization. So I think this is, in the context, everything is coming into play very, very well here. The second question was
devices and equipment.
Now, this is something which requires a lot of technology and a lot of capabilities. High-end infrastructure, the CT scan machines, the MRI machines, and that kind of infrastructure, I think we just import from the best in the world. I think that the top 3 suppliers globally are the best, and we just import from them. In terms of mid-size early technology products or generally products which are below 5 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees, there is manufacturing happening in India. And otherwise, we were importing it from China and several other areas. Now, we think this is a journey which will take much longer because I think our current infrastructure to scale volumes, manufacture, supply, and do it at a price, are we at cutting edge in terms of technology there to do it? I think these are questions yet to be addressed. In some areas, we are getting interesting, like, a few companies turned around and manufactured ventilators also for India, which were at much lower cost than internationally. But I think would private sector and government sector prefer this kind of companies, or they would prefer the cutting edge which is available globally to be able to service large scale volumes which are there in India? So I think this journey is still young. It is even younger than where the API and all these spaces are. And I think yet to see big winners out of it.
Thanks for that insight. The other question, which is very much market related, is that the Nifty 200 index, the pharma sector ranks 6th by weightage, something like 4.9% or so, last number I saw. Whereas in the S&P in the US, the pharma healthcare is number 2 after technology, 13-14% kind of a weight. So what is your prognosis that could the pharma sector weightage in the Nifty 200 move to double digits in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
Interestingly, this was double digit in 2014-15. In fact, it had crossed 12-13%, and after that you had 4 difficult years in the pharma sector coming from the US market collapse. So it's a very interesting question. In US, the amount of money they spend on healthcare is actually maybe 10 times of what we do. And as a percentage of GDP itself, there would be some 17-18%. So the kind of investment and the scale, and as our per capita income rises from this $2,000, and as we keep growing to $4,000, $8,000 over the next 10-20 years, I think you will have massive spends on healthcare, which is going to come. Longevity will increase. The same population which I mentioned, 27 crore people, it is equal to 75% of the population of US. Just the old age people in India, or people over 50, not old age, but people over 50 in India. And I think that segment will be large, and I think this sector will gain much greater prominence in the next 10-15 years, because this is just a sector which has that kind of opportunity and feeds very well into better income levels would mean better attempt by people to take care, better consumers, better accessing health services more, accessing better treatments available and things like that. One reason, and for a very good reason, why it is still not among the top 2 sectors in India is that the pricing of this sector, or the way medicines are available and sold in India, is extremely attractive for consumers. If you look at it, the same products in the US are actually, because they have innovated and they have patents there which are which allow them to be able to sell products at a much higher rate, and I think that is one thing which India cannot afford at this level, but pricing also in this sector will go up over long periods of time. So I think we have benefits of penetration, pricing in there, and I think it's possible that healthcare as a sector will have double-digit weight in the index over a medium term.
Thank you, sir.
I will, before I take, questions from which have come in, I will just take, the second poll. So I just want to know, so that people understand that the size of the, we have been talking about India and size of US. So we have just taken one comparison that Pfizer's market cap in India is around $3.7 billion. So what is the market cap of Pfizer in US? Okay, so we have just given 3 options to people: 222 billion, 83 billion, or 157 billion. So people can try to vote. So you just get an idea of one is an Indian subsidiary of okay, so I will just end in another 5-10 seconds, so people can just vote fast. Okay, so I'm just sharing the results. So we have 41% saying it's 157 billion, 25% is 83, and 34% are saying 222 billion. So it is $222 billion. So I mean, if you see the size of that market and the Indian market, you can just get an idea of that. So it's just taking a question from the audience which is coming. So is it possible for you to share your thoughts on the top holdings which you have in your, which is your top holding, and can you speak a bit about that? Or
Generally, I would not be able to comment on specific stocks, but directionally, I'll tell you structurally how we are thinking about it. I think a good part of profits will continue to come from domestic market. So I think the domestic market companies or people who are leaders in the spaces are very important parts of a portfolio. So they will, in our reading, chronic therapy spaces will continue to compound at maybe 15% for the next 5-10 years, and maybe even more because of the level of underpenetration which is there. Some companies in India have taken big and bold bets to address the US specialty market. Because we are discussing the US market here, let me just tell you, US market is close to $800 to $900 billion. So it's about 30 to 40 times the size of the Indian market, right? And out of which India is today addressing only 100 billion out of the 700, $800 billion market which we are referring to. And some companies now are able to put 1,000 crore rupees every year on research and development to get products launched in that $700 billion or $600 billion large market in the US. So I think this is one space which in our reading is as they call it, it's a very, very open, large opportunity. And at least you will find maybe 1 to 3 players in the next 5 years becoming very big. And even though there'll be some failure rates, but I think the cost of failing in this market is very, very, it's not something which Indian companies should not take the risk. In fact, they should be more than willing to take that risk because the returns sometimes are very, very high. In fact, most companies, the leading companies globally today, were actually companies who had invested in this space 50 years, 80 years back. And they had single products giving them 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 crore sales, which have made them this large global multinationals, as we call them today. So I think for the first time, I'm seeing that kind of an opportunity coming for leaders. And that is again an important component of our portfolio. The third area is the contract research and manufacturing space, where we have been invested in some of these businesses for the last 15, 17 years, and they just compound continuously at 15, 20% because India, like I mentioned, is possibly best placed in manufacturing pharmaceuticals as per global standards. And we have found some leaders there who we have stayed invested for each of the last 17 years. And I think some of these continue to still present an opportunity for growth. So I think these three are very important, large components of the portfolio, which a lot of value where the portfolio will be deriving from is from these 3 or 4 segments, which in a way represents my top 5 to 10 holdings.
Okay. And would your focus be more on large cap oriented, or you're going to be agnostic to that?
Yeah. See, the focus is more towards capability. So if you have mid-sized companies with capabilities of becoming larger cap businesses, we are open to owning it. Unfortunately, unlike other sectors in pharma, you need to invest a minimum 500,000 crores on R&D to be able to do something sensible. So only, you end up getting sustainable businesses who are servicing global markets require a minimum scale of R&D of say 500 crores and all to become, or 300, 200, 500 crores to be able to compete globally. So people who are building very strong product portfolios, either by investing in R&D or who have very strong brands in India, they may be mid-size or small size, but have very strong brands. We are agnostic purely to size, but we are more focused on the ability of these companies to invest for growth. So if you are getting it in a 5,000 crore market cap company also, which is a small cap, we are happy to participate in it, especially the branded plays. And for international markets, we would require to be invested in generally larger companies because they need to develop that much of products and invest so much in R&D.
So, one question is that do you expect, I have mentioned that in 17 years you have given a 22% CAGR. Okay. Now the question which one of the participants has asked is, can this sector grow at 22% CAGR in the next 10 years? So can as a sector it grow?
See, sector earnings, let me split the sector earnings into where they come from. We say 50% of earnings come from say domestic market. Domestic market can grow early double digit, maybe between 12 to 15% for a long period of time. See, we are so underpenetrated that it is not funny. So let me give you a small example. If in India there are say 10 crore people having diabetes, only 5 crore of them would have, or maybe only 4 crore or 3 crore would have actually tested themselves and identified themselves as diabetes. out of the 3 crore who would have tested, only 1.5 crore would be treating it as a chronic problem and taking medicines regularly. And a lot of others would be taking medicines for 15-20 days and then they leave it because they don't monitor and maintain. So that the domestic side of it, this segment, can it grow double digit because of such a level of underpenetration? I think is clear, and I think we are very confident that earnings there will grow double digit. The other segments are US and emerging markets or exports. Now, exports also somewhat should behave like how the Indian market behaves, because similar dynamics are there and we have a large market opportunity to sell to. And there also we can say early double-digit growth is possible. Now, I'm generally referring to a range of 12 to 15% for the sector in these two categories. US has two markets, the generic market in US, which can grow maybe early single digit. It cannot grow very, very fast, can grow early single digit because we have so much of market share and penetration already. And a lot of products have already lost patents there. And to be able to replace and introduce new products and grow rapidly there seems difficult. So you will have early single digit growth for a lot of companies there. And then the specialty or the branded market, the large market that 3-4 companies in India might want to target and are targeting today, would provide or would be a big area of growth. So all in all, can this sector do earnings in the range of 12 to 15% on average based on the construct we are seeing, 50% domestic, 50% international? I think in all probability it can. And generally, returns or valuations generally trend to be in line with what the earnings come over long periods of time. So I think this kind of a earning expectation from the sector seems real, depending on the positioning where we stand today of this sector versus its global competitiveness. So this is what seems to be from an earnings point of view possible. What stock markets give is more an outcome of when you enter and directionally where you stand. But the confidence that this sector's earnings can double maybe in a 4 to 5 year period is actually reasonably high.
Okay. Now, there's a question, I'm not able to completely get it, but I'll just try to phrase it. Your opinion on biosimilar as of now has only one company. I think it's referring to Biocon, as US FDA clearance for three biosimilar drugs. What about the rest?
So biosimilars has been a difficult area for a lot of Indian companies too. Indian companies are simply too good in chemical side of it, which is all the pharmaceutical products which are there. The pharmaceutical products have a chemical background, and the biologics, which are more fermentation-based products. So in this, to launch a product in the US, you required a lot of investment in product development, a lot of investment in R&D. Each single product was even costing $20 million to be spent on doing the studies and clinical studies to be able to get approvals from the US. Interestingly, in this market, you have found that very few companies have invested because this market has a lot of entry barriers, and generally the top 5-6 companies only in India can afford to do it, and only a couple of them have ready products in the market today. I think India's competitiveness in this market will be there, but I think we will not be as dominant as we have been in the chemical side of it, because here you are finding innovators themselves, so larger multinational companies themselves who have capacities and who can launch these products, because these products are still profitable for them. They are actually coming into this space and making it very competitive. So in this space, India may not be as dominant as it has been on the small molecule space, as we call it, for the normal pharmaceuticals.
Okay. I'll just take maybe a last question. You're saying that there is a disruption seen in many segments. So the same way, what disruption will be seen in pharma, and how would you avoid them in your fund? I mean, in terms of the disruptions.
See, disruption is, I think, a very normal condition which is there today in the world. So it's no longer that it's not going to come and hit someone. It's going to come and hit someone. The only thing is whether the disruption is what type of and what is the nature of disruption, and what can happen. So when we think through all this, we would realize, I mentioned in my initial talk, that can there be a a single app for all your healthcare requirements. It takes in all your data, it does your analysis. You have a doctor on call on your smartphone. You have ability to purchase medicines, diagnostics done. You have second opinions possible, and several other, and even monitoring. Today, you can monitor your several medical parameters using so I think there is enough in technology which can happen in this space. Healthcare at one level is one of the most inefficient sectors. And if you're able to put technology into play, either by as assisting doctors to be able to do better diagnosis. Today, a lot of diagnosis, a lot of machine learning and reading is there, where a machine can actually, or an algorithm can actually go through millions of say X-rays or millions of CT scans and come out with solutions or come out with diagnosis which is possibly in line with what doctors themselves can do. So I think there is a lot of activity there. A lot of people are building databases and working. Even large global tech companies like Google and all are investing in health and other areas. And I think you will find all this coming into play. Will it disrupt India's market significantly? No, I think it will accelerate India's market, is my opinion. So existing branded players will only benefit benefit from all this which is being developed and made available, and the scale and volume which this can address. Online pharmacies is another area which can shift a lot of chronic patients to online ordering, which might impact pharmacy businesses in India over long periods of time. But I think, like I mentioned, there is a large amount of under-penetration today. Say in India today, both e-commerce and normal commerce is growing. So it's not like in US and all, where you're finding that regular traditional commerce is suffering while e-commerce is growing. In India, you're finding both of them growing because e-commerce type of activity is hitting India at a very early stage of its retail revolution. Then in terms of new medicines, there is significant work on gene therapy and all this happening in the US. In fact, today, diseases which were thought to be untreatable are being treated, obviously, although at a very, very expensive cost. And I think we are finding that will be, some of it will start getting available in the next few years in India. It will more be an add-on because I think a very few percentage of people will be able to afford it. The fifth big thing, I think the real disruption to India is, I think healthcare insurance or health insurance will itself accelerate in India from where we stand. It is still very, very low. Government-led investments, the digital health initiative by the government, all this will feed into possibly a large section of 40-50 crore size of population in India getting access to good medical care and healthcare. And that I think will actually expand the market dramatically for Indian businesses and Indian companies. So I think there is less to be worried about this disruption hitting healthcare. I think it is more like, in fintech, for example, whatever disruption is coming, the leading Indian banks today have been reasonably agile to fight to it and, actually take advantage of it and gain market share, giving digital loans in a matter of 10 seconds, 20 seconds and compete with fintechs. I think a lot of Indian companies will now transition and do a meaningful investments in newer areas of healthcare and health services, which in my opinion will be very important to look out for. So I'd look at more add-on and interesting opportunities in that area. And I think the existing traditional businesses still have a very, very long runway, because patients are onto those products and those products will continue to be a part of doctors' prescriptions for a very long period of time to come.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So I'll just take a last poll.
Sure.
So, I mean, after having heard you, and heard about the sector, I'm sure, at least even I'm a bit more wiser, and whether our audiences. So there is a question is that would you invest in pharma as a sector? So it's just a simple yes or no. So just trying to get a sense from people that whether they would like to invest in the pharma sector. So. Wait for another 10 seconds. So So we have a resounding 97% of the people would like to invest in the pharma sector. So I'm sure they have benefited a lot from Sailesh what you have spoken. So I'll just summarize in terms of what you have been talking about, and I think I must have heard like under penetrated as is a key word. I mean that we are extremely under penetrated, and so there is a huge opportunity as such in the domestic market per se in terms of the pharma space which is concerned. I mean very insightful in terms of that, trying to know that that the population which is above 50 would actually become the fourth largest country in the world. I mean, so that's a huge number of people which can get addressed for their and obviously once you age beyond 50, the medical needs also tends to increase, and 1 crore being added every year to that segment, that itself is also a huge number. And so it's just like you are adding a huge amount of population across over there. 50% of the profits are coming from the domestic sector, so that also was a good point which you mentioned out. And you foresee this to becoming one of the largest sector in India. So I think with medicines as a requirement, I'm sure I don't think that this is going to be too far away. And comfortable margins. We've just started in the branded space, and we are a supplier of choice. So healthcare infrastructure is also being taken care of. So I think that will bring in more knowledge on medical requirement. And I think just one thing which I would like to add is that like when you find a particular sector attractive, obviously you find certain stocks attractive. So if you are confused that which stock would do well, the best way to play the sector would be through a mutual fund route, so that a person you are able to buy. Just imagine you'll be able to buy the top 10 or top 20 stocks with just 5,000 rupees. You can do a SIP over there. And if you are comfortable with owning a stock, I mean obviously if we are able to identify that, I mean you can play with that. So that's what you can do. So thank you, Sailesh. Thank you for taking time out and giving us an insightful into the healthcare. And I'm sure a lot of people have gone that with your bullishness into the segment, and they will take actions accordingly. Thank you very much, and everyone can enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you, Sailesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.